I didn't like the way things were going. I thought people were hurting. They didn't like the way things were going. And Kamala was literally just going, yeah, we're going to keep doing that. You can't be surprised if you go, yeah, I thought Joe did a great job and we're going to keep on doing that. If people are upset and they decide to vote in a different direction.
Yeah.
Comedian and podcaster Andrew Schulz providing some insight into why he says he cast his vote for Donald Trump last November despite aligning with more liberal candidates in the past, like Bernie Sanders. He says the shift toward Trump last November can be explained less by voters moving to the right and more by a shifting of the two major political parties. Take a listen.
We have no problem saying that Trump completely changed the Republican Party. Like, it looks nothing like the party of 10 years ago.
Right.
Right? Like, he completely transformed it. You could make the argument that, like, Bernie is transforming the Democratic Party. So we know that parties change. And I think people kind of stay in their areas and parties shift. And sometimes they can shift and grab more people. So that was the conversation I was trying to say. It's not people running away. It's parties running away.
His comments come as Democrats are scrambling to find a podcasting star, the so-called Joe Rogan of the left. And they have launched Speaking with American Men, or SAM, an effort to reach out to young men.
Yeah, Andrew Schulz is certainly speaking for how a lot of people feel that the parties have changed, or the Democratic Party left them behind, or the Republican Party is trying to capture their vote. It is often, in very abstract terms that's addressed, because I don't know how many policies of the Republican Party have actually changed. There is certainly less consensus around international trade. There is more of a consensus on maximally being for immigration restriction. So I think Trump has impacted the Republican Party, certainly in many ways. I would have said up until a week ago that he had also shifted the Republican Party into a more non-interventionist direction, although the Iran exception is now so glaring that you might not be able to make such an argument that the Republican Party at this moment, concentrated on this issue, actually very closely resembles the Republican Party of yesteryear. But maybe that's just recency bias or something.
No, I mean, I think that's a completely valid point. The thing that perplexed me about those Andrew Schulz remarks was it's just not clear to me what he wants. Like, what is his prescription for the right policies he wants enacted? It seems very vibe shifty to me. And also it does frustrate me slightly in the sense that I think the logic is lazy in suggesting what he suggested in the first clip that we played, where someone says, I don't like what incumbent X is doing, therefore I'll vote for challenger Y, with seemingly not really very much thought about whether the alternative is going to be better, simply out of disdain for the existing option.
Well, I can understand in some cases registering a protest vote for the, for instance, in the New York City mayor race. I have no doubt if I probably considered all of their policies alongside Cuomo versus Mamdani, I am sure I would prefer Cuomo's policies. I would not and could not vote for Cuomo given what he did. And because of the ranked choice voting system, I could just vote for neither of them. I would research the other 80 people running and I would vote for one of them. But if you put a gun to my head and made me vote, or they had a different system where I had to vote for Cuomo or Mamdani, I would probably vote for Mamdani just as I cannot vote for Cuomo based on what he did, even though if you looked, I agree with his policies even less. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I mean, I do take the point that there are certain people who you just can't.
I think some people would have done that with Joe Biden, saying if he's still, this is what you gave us, you deserve to lose, I'm going to vote for Trump. Now, then they did switch him with Kamala Harris. Maybe that muted some of that effect.
Well, you see, in Schulz's case, it seems to me that he's not exactly making that argument. He's saying Kamala Harris was going to continue what Joe Biden did. Therefore, I want something unspecified but different. Therefore, I'm going to vote for Trump. And he cited that this sense that people are hurting, which is true. I mean, there's no question about that. And you look at things like wage stagnation, inflation, and all of that. But then surely the question has to arise, well, does Donald Trump have policies that repair that? And it's not even clear to me that Schulz actively or specifically concluded that the answer to that was yes. It was simply, well, I don't want what has come before, so I'll vote for the other guy. And I think in this case, the other guy is so well-known, sloganeering, mendacious, etc., that there are all sorts of questions around that.
Well, this is why...
What's the eye roll about,
we
Robby?
libertarians... no, I was not going to argue against you on what you were saying about Trump, but we libertarians, you know, are lukewarm on the whole democracy kind of thing because voters are irrational. And, I mean, voters... Clearly, I'm not recommending any other system.
Lukewarm on the whole democracy kind of thing.
Don't you feel a little lukewarm about it? Voters they hate the system, and they hate the establishment, and they want to throw the bums out, and they want to radically change the system. But then they don't actually want any kind of radical change. They don't want more spent. They're not willing to spend more. They don't want their taxes raised. They just have a nostalgia for the past. They think everything was better when they were little. I myself have increasingly succumb to this thinking as I get up there in age, and I long for the 90s were so great. That it like voters have a fondness for the past and don't like change, but they also hate the systems and they hate the party and they want throw them out, anti-establishment. It's fundamentally irrational. There's no way to fit that need. So then you get spokespeople like Andrew Schulz saying basically that. Let's do something in the vaguest terms, because if you get more specific, well, then nobody actually does want those changes.
Right.
So,
which is
voters, man, democracy.
Well, look, I'm not going to join you in your skepticism or ambivalence about democracy.
Ambivalence is a good word.
I think
I'm ambivalent.
It is the what's that phrase of Winston Churchill?
The least bad system. Well, that's fine. That's a fine way of characterizing it.
Ever been tried.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm not
way of
denying that
characterizing
voters can be irrational. Sometimes in opinion polls, you see completely contradictory findings.
Yes.
But that does not mean that we should cast out democracy.
Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act poll very differently. They are the same thing. They are the same thing.
Yeah. And a great social progress made by the Democratic Party, of course, Robby, one that has expanded access to health insurance for a great number of people, alleviating human suffering, as government should
except the
do.
people who got kicked off plans that they were perfectly happy with, despite what Obama said about keeping it. One more Thomas Massey-related point today.
Your hero.
He one time gave an interview, and he so nailed this dynamic. He said that, in the Tea Party era, where it looked like that was the last time the Republican Party was taking on a slightly more libertarian mindset or views closer to my own, and we really thought like libertarianism was having a moment, and that was the future of the Republican Party. And he gave some interview where he said he thought that at the time too, and then what he later realized is voters just wanted, on the right, the craziest thing, and for a while that was libertarianism. Right. And then when Trump came along, that was the thing they wanted.
It was by Trumpism.
Right. We just couldn't compete. It was you're going to lose market share to the more out there thing, and that's kind of what I hear echoes of that in the even the like for obviously Bernie Sanders has a lot of very specific policies and does want very radical transformative change, but as a figure who is just against the establishment, that was part of his appeal to people who have all sorts of actual range of policy ideas. For a lot of people, it was about his ideas. For others, it's just that he was, again, railing against the establishment, which everybody likes.
No, absolutely. Everyone does like that. And my worry about it on a broader sense than politics is that it sometimes makes people, in my opinion, too susceptible to conspiracy theories. But in terms of the political angle, there's no question at all that there's a very strong anti-establishment, anti-status quo impulse out there. And people like Sanders, you see that in the terms of the crowds that he's drawing on the tour that he is on, sometimes joined by AOC. I mean, she is trying, I think, to capture those people who want radical change while softening her own positions slightly. Trump is still, in my opinion, Trump is seen as a change agent by some. I think it is a very malevolent change for the most part.
A regime change agent.
As perhaps. Getting back to where we started, Robby. Getting back to where we started. Up next, California Governor Gavin Newsom gaining steam ahead of the 2028 race, but will Dems back